Welcome back to the Manor. Julian McBain here. We're back on migration. It's actually been a really enjoyable migration, to be honest. Just making sure I have everything I need. So, Mondays. Mondays are interesting days. But before we get started, if you're new to the channel, welcome to the Manor. Please take a moment and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, one subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. Also, please consider going to patreon.com/JulianMcBain if you want to support my work. If you do, you'll get exclusive content. This month, I did Miles in the Night along with some discussion. And I try to change that stuff up every month, just so it's not stale. My hope is to eventually provide more content that is exclusive so that there's more for patrons. It's a matter of time, though. You know, as I was talking in my last being someone, you know, even though I wear a suit to my regular job, I live out in the country and we're working all the frickin' time. Like, it's 8:14 and I just finished my normal day's work. So, like, I did my 9 to 5, then I came home, and then there was dinner, and then there was cleanup, and then there was other housework that needed doing, and now I'm finally done. And that's a normal day for me. Like, I aim for 8 o'clock every night. So, take that for what you will. And I know there's a lot of you out there that would think that's absolutely nuts. But that's life out here, you know? Get up at 6:30. Begin the day's labors by 8 o'clock. And finish up by 8 o'clock. And that's a good day. And technically I'm still working because this is for... Although this is a labor of love, this is something I enjoy doing, it is still work. This is still part of what I consider to be my day's labors. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, Tuesdays and Fridays I work till 10:30. I take a break in between. But that's life. Life out here in the country. And as we were talking last time, you know, culture is often built upon food, but it's also built upon values. And one of the things that I often debate with people that I spend time with, they're more than acquaintances but less than friends. Like, I enjoy hanging out with them, but we disagree on so much, I'm not sure we could ever really be considered friends. But for lack of a closer term, we'll call them friends. They're on the... If you have, like, different layers of friend groups, they would definitely be within the outer layer. Inside of acquaintances, so, like, if you have best friends and then close friends and then friends and then, say, family friends and then less close friends and then acquaintances, they're definitely within those, not the outer of acquaintances, but the next two layers. Friendships are complicated. They really are. But we've had discussions and debates about, you know, cultural values and things like that. And one of the things that we've gotten stuck on, or it appears that they get stuck on, is, you know, a person is more than just the value of their production. And it's like, no, that's not the point at all. It's not the point I'm trying to make. Although oftentimes a person's ability to produce does in fact speak a lot to their personal value system. And that's not strictly speaking true. But, you know, how hard you work, how self-sufficient can you be? You know? And I mean, if you can be self-sufficient on 40 hours a week, more power to you. In theory, like when I lived in a city, I could be self-sufficient on roughly 40 hours a week because there wasn't a whole lot of extra stuff. It was work, go home, and live in my little basement apartment. You know, I didn't have a yard. I didn't have, you know, heat was built into the rent, which was more than twice what I'm paying now. It was a different lifestyle. And trust me when I say, I will cheerfully work the 12-hour days to have the benefits of living out in the country. I'm serious. Like, right now, I could go out and pick a trio of jalapeno peppers and just put some cream cheese on them and wrap them in some bacon, throw them in the air fryer for like 5-10 minutes, just long enough to cook the bacon, and have jalapeno poppers fresh off the plant. I got some tomatoes growing, got fresh herbs. If we need basil, I just go out to the deck and I cut off a few sprigs of basil and oregano or parsley. And we got eggplants growing. Eggplant's not really my thing, but there are some recipes I enjoy them in. I hear some jokes out there. Shut up. I can't do that in the city, though. Like, when I was living in the city, theoretically, I could have a garden. I'm sure my landlord wouldn't have minded. But there's no real space for it. You know? Next year, we're thinking about putting in potatoes. Fresh potatoes. We can slice those things up, toss them in the air fryer with just a tiny bit of oil. You know, just enough to coat them. So what I do is, if I make fries, I'll slice the potatoes up into, I'll julienne the potatoes. Interesting name. I'll julienne the potatoes, and then I'll put a little bit of olive oil, and I'll shake the potatoes in olive oil just so it coats the potatoes. Put some kosher salt on it. Throw them in the air fryer. 12 minutes later, you got fresh French fries. They're healthier than the deep fried ones you get at the restaurants. Throw some kosher salt on those. Delicious. And if we manage to lay in potatoes next year, which I think is on the docket, like we've been dropping wood ash out there to really get the soil nice and well. So we have a wood stove, which of course produces ash. Ash is a great fertilizer. We've been preparing ground for like 3 years. Till it all in. You know, lay in some potatoes. You know, I got my hunting licenses for the first time in like 15 years. So I'm really hoping to pull in a nice sized buck. Put some fresh meat in the freezer. Unfortunately, Vermont's hunting season is only like 2 weeks long, and I get out of work after dark. So either I'm going to have to take some time off to do it, or I'm going to only have 2 weekends. Which is unfortunate. But these are the benefits of country life. You know, fresh food. I can grow food. We've had chickens before. I'm working on the family on getting chickens again. Which I think I've got everyone on board with it now, marginally. I also want an emu for reasons, but the chickens are the important part. Yes, I want an emu. Here's why I want an emu, and there's a couple of reasons. As far as I have been able to tell, and I'm going to do more research on it before I pull the trigger on this, an emu will get along with chickens. What an emu will not get along with are foxes and coyotes, which are a major problem where I live when it comes to raising chickens. Like, I've had a fox just stroll down in the field and just kind of, you know, jog on up, and she was a big ass fox too. Like bigger than my dog. Of which, okay, she was my grandmother's dog. She's a Maltese. She only weighs 12 pounds, and she's overweight. But it was like the size of it was bigger than a beagle. It was a big fox, big old red fox, and but foxes will go after chickens, and coyotes will too. And we got a couple of pack around here of coyote. There's also a bobcat or lynx rolling around in the back somewhere. We see cat sign a couple times a year in the winter, so that's something to be to be thoughtful about too. But an emu doesn't give a frick. It will stomp the living snot out of anything. Ah, frick. That's not what I wanted. Oh crap. Oh crap. It'll just stomp. Right? It just doesn't care. You know, which is why I like Emu. Now, I have heard they have some attitude problems, which is not surprising because they're basically ostriches. Hi, that was lovely. Lost that kill. I basically just took a bunch of damage for someone else. You're welcome for tanking. Sorry, that threw me, because as far as I could tell, they weren't shooting it. And just as soon as I pulled it, they were shooting at it. And they got the loot anyway, so glad to donate a bunch of ped to them, but whatever. And they're bitching at me about it. Oh, where were we? Fresh, oh, chickens in Emu. But here's the thing about emus. One, I've heard the meat tastes really good. And two, and the funny thing is they lay 1 pound eggs. 1 pound eggs. I can't even imagine what it would be like to cook up a 1 pound egg. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to fry that sucker and just see what kind of an omelet I can make out of it. You know, I will say it's probably one of the downsides to Entropia Universe's system, just talking about this mob thing. There is nothing to indicate when a mob's been tagged, and that is something it really should have. I'm hoping when they do the UE5 upgrade, that gets fixed. Because that is, out of all things, that's probably the most frustrating thing, is you can't tell when a mob is tagged. Like, if they had been, if they had been attacking that mob and it showed up as tagged, I wouldn't have shot at it. But I didn't see its health moving. And I'll review this video after. And maybe it was. Maybe they got the first shot in just as I fired and their shot hit first. And so it's a legit tag. But at the same time, it's situations like that are frustrating. And unfortunately, they wind up, they result in lost money for players. And again, maybe it's my own fault. Maybe I just didn't notice it, and that's on me if that's the case. Doesn't make it less frustrating. Oh boy. Talk about a total derailment of topic. And I'm sorry to, like, go off on, like, country culture and shit like that lately. I don't know. I've noticed such a growing gap between urbanite and rural culture and how we think of things. And like one of the big ones, I think, and this gap is actually closing. It's the attitude toward firearms, right? Like, I grew up around firearms. I carry firearms regularly. It's part of my life, right? It's part of my lifestyle. And I mean, I've got a shooting range in the backyard, like an actual backstop setup. You know, we're able to pin up targets. We've got a table at 100 yards, just under 100 meters for sighting things in. Like, we go the full 9 yards. And to me, it's a good afternoon when you can spend it, you know, with friends and family, just plinking targets. And that's an afternoon well spent. You know, we'll be out there for 2-3 hours and take turns, you know, shooting. Oftentimes there'll be 2 or 3 families out there, and we'll all be just taking our turns. But a lot of my friends that live in the city, they wouldn't even go near a firearm. You know, they don't see the point in firearms. They don't think that they are anything that's needed. And maybe for them they're not. Which, if they don't want them, it's fine by me, as long as they don't try to take mine. But it's one of those things where there's, like, so when, on the rare occasion that conversation comes up, there's always this cultural disconnect, because they don't understand my perspective. To a certain extent, I do understand theirs because I've lived in the city. Maybe I don't get it from their point of view, but I've had that experience of living in a city. You know, I've had a break-in at 2 o'clock in the morning. In my building. It was the apartment above me, but it was in my building, and the guy broke in, and the cops were... I actually heard the cops trying to get into the apartment because the apartment was vacant, other than the intruder. Like vacant. There was no one living there. The person had moved out like the week before. And I actually came out armed. I was armed with a sword because I didn't have a gun. Because I heard this banging and shouting. I didn't understand what was going on. And looking down the stairs at me are 3 police officers. And I'm like, oh, hi, officers. But you wouldn't find that out here. You would not find that out here at all. Never happen. I mean, for one, the likelihood of the break-in likelihood in where I am is much lower for reasons, but police response time is 30 minutes or greater. Now, that being said, if I were to respond to loud noises at my door armed, the police here would also be understanding, because that's how they would answer their own door in the same situation. And in all likelihood, there's a 50-50 chance I'll know the cop. Small town life. It was just, it amazes me. And these are people in this, like, they are only 45 minutes from me. These people live only 45 minutes from me, but that's how... Now, admittedly, there's a mountain range between us. And the mountain range actually does partition, like, the 2 major segments of Vermont. Vermont's kind of split into 2 areas by a mountain range. So when the joke in Vermont is you can't get there from here, you know? But that's more of a maniac accent. So, you know, you want to get down to the Echo Center. Hang on, I can, give me a second. I got to get the accent right. I got to get the accent right. Sell them by the pound, don't you know? What? You want to get to Middlebury? You can't get there from here, don't you know? You got to go down and around through Rutland and then go back north. I mean, yeah, it's directly east from where we are, but there's no path through the mountains. You know, that's you can't get there from here. There are places in Vermont where as the crow flies, like there are people who pass their house on the interstate. They can see their house from the interstate. They go by it. It's still 15 minutes to get there because of the route they have to take to get there. That's Vermont. And that's not traffic. That's just roadways. Because heavy traffic in most places in Vermont is a tractor in front of you. Okay? I'm not making that up either. I have been delayed more times by tractors than by slow drivers in Vermont. Where it actually made a difference in time. Like, okay, there's a road here where it's a 40-mile-an-hour zone, and for whatever reason, there's a bunch of people who seem to think they have to drive 30 on it. It drives me friggin' crazy, but they're there. But the whole stretch of road is like 2 miles long, so it's not that huge a deal. But until you're on a dirt road out in backwoods Vermont, and there's a farm tractor pulling a plow in front of you, and you got to wait till a spot where you can see around the corner, because it's not straight road. This isn't the Midwest, kids. In the Midwest, the best part about the Midwest is if you get stuck behind a harvester or some shit, the road's straight and flat. You can tell what's coming for 5 miles ahead of you, so you know if you can pass that harvester or not. Now, oftentimes you couldn't, but at least you knew when you could. In Vermont, no such luck. If there's a tractor in front of you, in all likelihood, you're going to be behind it for 10 minutes waiting for the one straightaway on this one stretch of road, so you can see whether or not you can pass it. And if there's one car coming, you're SOL. You're following that tractor all the way to the next intersection. The funny thing is I've been from this perspective both in the car and on the tractor, so. and it's not like they don't attempt to pull off to the side. Sometimes there's just no place to pull off. Vermont culture is seeing a dead skunk in the middle of the road and driving out there with your tractor and a shovel because you don't want something hitting the stink sack with their car because it hasn't been hit yet. Yeah, that was me about a month ago. Ugh. I mean, I don't mind removing dead animals. Skunks. You screw up moving a skunk, and it is a nightmare. I know, I'm totally letting my woodchuck colors show here. And I'm okay with that. You know, I talk about a lot of white-collar topics. I talk about money. I talk about economics. I talk about, you know, philosophy, building your life up, building that foundation that will allow you to build the life that you want to lead. Very, very philosophical things. But this week, I don't know. I'm just like, with all the crap that has gone on in the last year, I'm just very, very thankful that I live in the country and not in a city. Like, seriously. And I'm not knocking urban life. I enjoyed urban life when I lived there. I really did. You know, the last year and a half notwithstanding, there's always something to do in a city. You'll always find, you can just go down and hang out, and there are going to be people who will hang out with you and chat, you know? When I lived in Bismarck, there were all kinds of restaurants, there was a nightlife, you know? And if I wanted access to countryside, it's Bismarck, North Dakota. I mean, you drive a mile and a half out of town, you're going to find cows. So it was actually a really nice mix, but I'm telling you, this last year and a half, I could not appreciate country living more, even though it resulted in, oh good, I thought it was going to drop me back through the frickin' floor again. Even though it's, you know, a lot of it has been splitting wood, yarding trees. It's days of hard work. Long days of hard work. And I'm not the hardest worker in this family. I mean, don't get me wrong, I work hard. But I live in a 3-generation household up until last year. And no, it wasn't because of COVID. Up until last year, I lived in a 4-generation household. You know? There we go. And it takes that many to run this house. Welcome to country living. Okay, I'll stop rambling. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, 1 subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. And as always, I really appreciate all of your support, and we will see you in the next one.